My name is Larissa. In this video, I will show you how to make the side part of the scrub cap I'm wearing. This scrub cap has a pouch for hair. You need to print out my sewing pattern, cut it out, then tape it. Now you're ready. To get your own copy of my sewing pattern, click on the link at the top of your video on the right. Now you're ready to start sewing. Always iron your fabric before you cut it. Fold your fabric at 19¼ inches. Use the ruler to check that your edges are aligned properly. If your fabric, like mine, is solid color, mark the wrong side of the fabric. Now take the side part of the pattern and align it with the fold in the fabric. Trace all around it. Make marks on the spots where you will reinforce the fabric with zigzag stitch. Then pin 2 layers of the fabric together. Now you need to cut out the side part of your scrub cap. Mark the places for the zigzag reinforcement on both sides of your side part. To prepare side part of the scrub cap for sewing, I am going to iron down the spots where zigzag stitch will go first. I am flipping around the fabric so as to prevent my fingers from being burned if I keep working on the hot fabric. Now I flip it again, and I'm going to iron down the seam allowance for the tie on my side part. I fold the curvy part second time, the one where the zigzag stitch will go. Then I flip to the other side, iron down the seam allowance for the tie, and make second fold on the part which will be stitched by zigzag. Next, I iron down seam allowance on the short side of the tie. Then fold seam allowance for the long side of the tie and all the way down the bottom of my scrub cap. Once I'm at the end of the second tie, I fold the seam allowance in the opposite direction on the short side to the direction of fold of seam allowance on the long side. I interlock the seam allowances to create a very nice clean end of the tie. I do that on both sides, of course. After ends of both ties are interlocked, I am going to iron the fold down, and the width of the tie is about 1 inch. Iron your tie and the hem of the scrub cap all the way to the other side. Once you reach the second tie, make sure that ends are still interlocking and iron them down so they stay nice and clean. Use zigzag stitch to reinforce your ties. Find the left tie of your scrub cap and flip your work on the wrong side. Now start stitching with zigzag at the corner of your left tie. Make sure that you are helping your sewing machine mechanism because there's nothing really for it to grab at the corner. So do a couple of stitches manually. And make sure when you're stitching through the tie that your needle always hits fabric, never goes through the air. And do the same thing on the other side, on the second tie. When you reach the corner, just help your sewing machine. Make a couple of stitches manually, just like I did. When I finish stitching, I hide the ends of the thread between the layers of fabric. I use my needle to do that. Ends of the ties look nice and clean.